Hello again. Today is day 2 of our real numbers unit. Today we are talking about square roots and cube roots. So you basically already know this information, so most of it's review. So let's take a look. Squaring a number, when we square a number, we multiply that number by itself. So 1 squared is 1 times 1. 2 squared is 2 times 2. 3 squared is 3 times 3. 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared. What's 7 squared? Hopefully you said 49, or 7 times 7. What's 8 squared? Hopefully you said 64, or 8 times 8. So you get the idea. 10 squared is 100. 13 squared is 169. 20 squared is 400. Okay, so you're multiplying the number times itself. So those are squares. In math, we always have a forwards and a backwards, or a do and an undo. So a square root, we already talked about in Pythagorean theorem, is how we undo a square. So the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of what is 6? Hopefully you said 36. Okay, the square root of what is 7? Hopefully you said 49, because 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, so what is the square of 12? 144, or 12 times 12. What is the square root of 400, or what times itself gives you 400? That's 20. 5 squared is 25. What is 30 to the second power? That's another way of saying squared. And the square root of 256 is 16. If you didn't know it off the top of your head, you could use that square root button in your calculator. Okay, so we also have cube roots. So a cube root is something, a number times itself, or a number times itself 3 times. So this would be 1 times 1 times 1, or 1. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. Then 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. What is 4 cubed? Hopefully you said 64. Okay, so now if I have cubes, I have to have a way to undo a cube, which is called a cube root. Notice this little 3 hanging out here? That's how I know it's a cube root, not a square root. So make sure you include those 3's when you're cube rooting. So the cube root of 1 is 1. The cube root of 8 is 2. The cube root of 27 is 3. Because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. What is the cube root? That gives you an answer of 4. Hopefully you said 64, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Now, we've talked about this earlier in the year. Square roots always have, not cube roots, but square roots always have 2 answers, one positive and one negative. For instance, in number 1. I can do 3 times 3 and get 9. I can also do negative 3 times negative 3 and get 9. So the square root of 9 is technically positive and negative 3. The vast majority of the time, we only talk about the positive root in middle school because we're dealing with Pythagorean theorem and lengths of sides, things like that. But in 9th grade, you will actually need that negative answer as well. So just know that it exists. When I want the negative square root, or I want both roots, I will show you in like number 7, where I write positive and negative, or in like number 8, where I have the negative sign out front. I only want the negative root. Okay, if I only want the positive root, I'll ask you for the principal root, or I'll just leave it plain for now because we normally deal with just principal or positive roots. So the square root of 144 is 12. Then 11 squared, or 11 times 11, is 121. 5 cubed, well, that's 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. So you could be doing these in your calculator. Now, you know how to get a square root in your calculator, but you may not know how to get the cube root. So something like number 6. So I think that I can I think that I can turn this camera around somehow. Let me see if I know what I'm doing here. Let's see. Can I switch to a webcam? It doesn't look like I can switch to a webcam in here. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I thought I could switch to my webcam. Okay, it says that I can toggle this on and off. Maybe I gotta be in here. Focus mode, hide cursor, highlight. Not showing up. Okay, well, apparently it's not going to let me show you how to do this with the webcam. So I'm going to describe it for you. So if you have the TI-30X or X2S or the school calculator, the one I give you, or the one that was you were asked to buy on your list, you're looking for a button that looks like this. It's not an actual button, it's actually written on the calculator. So it says X and then the square root like that. So if you find the x squared button, which is next to the number 7, so there's a number 7 here, then there's the x squared button here, then there's the caret button. Above the caret button is this button. That's the button that you're looking for. So to get that, it's printed on the calculator, so you have to use your second key. So you'll press second, and then you'll press that little caret key. So second, that little caret key. Okay, and then what happens is one of two things. It'll either say answer, ANS, and then X and the caret, which means you have to put the root in first. So I would hit 3, and then second, that caret. Now that's the third root of 64, so I put in 64, and it gives me the answer of 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So in my calculator, I hit 3, then I hit second, and then I hit that caret. And then I put in 64, and then I hit equals. Some of your calculators, you're just going to hit second, the caret key, and then it'll literally show you this. So highlight this piece and put in the 3, and then put the 64 underneath and hit equals. You should get 4. Okay, so that's your little crash course on how to use your calculator. Okay, number 7 is a square root. So the square root, positive or negative of 1.69, I do that in my calculator, is positive or negative 1.3. Okay, you try to do number 10. See if you can use that cube root function on your calculator. Hopefully you got 9. Okay, then we can do fractions, so something like 13, square root of the top, square root of the bottom. You try 14. Hopefully you got 11/17. Okay, and then we can use this in our algebra as well, just like we did when we did Pythagorean theorem. So if I'm solving something like number 1, I have n squared equals 81. Well, I don't want n squared, I just want n. So to get rid of the square, I square root both sides. So n equals both positive and negative 9, because 9 times 9 is 81, and negative 9 times negative 9 is 81. Again, most of the times we just deal with the positive root, so right now we will just write 9. Next year you will write both. Okay, you try number 2. You have to square root each side. Tell me what you get. Or sorry, that's number 3, not number 2. Hopefully you got y equals 0.14. Try number 6. That's another cube root. So cube root, make sure you put that index of 3 in there. Cube root of negative 125. Hopefully you got negative 5. Okay, we can do the same for word problems. Max wants a large picture window put in the living room of his new house. The window is to be a square with an area of 49 square feet. So I know that area equals side times side, or side squared. So 49 equals side squared. How do I get just s instead of s squared? Well, I square root both sides, so I know that it should be 7. Okay, and positive because it's a measurement, so 7 feet would be my answer. The volume of a cube, is side cubed. So 1,000 equals side cubed. What's the length of the side? Go ahead and calculate it. You need the cube root. When you show your work, you put that little index of 3 in there. And the side should equal 10, or 10 inches. All right, guys, that's it. That's pretty much all we had to do today. So we will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Or hear you tomorrow, I guess, not see ya.